Hi, today I want to talk about microhabits. What they are, how they can help you to accomplish more even when you have a busy schedule, with some extra tips especially for developers. I'm a developer myself and the father of a 1-year-old. Then, within my responsibilities, finding time for side projects is kind of a challenge, and microhabits have helped me both to get started and continuously work on my goals. I will start by defining what I mean with microhabits, and then I will show some stories of my goals, habits, and results of that continuous work. So then, what are microhabits? Microhabits are intended to be done each day with a minimum effort possible so we can actually stick to them. The idea is recognizing that lots of small efforts will have a compound results over time, greater than larger efforts in an irregular basis. Also consider the time limitations and unpredictable things that can happen during the day. It's important to notice that habits always should serve a bigger goal or objective. We don't just do habits just because. A common example of microhabits is how Duolingo operates. Doing a lesson each day is extremely easy. It doesn't take too much effort or time, and just the fact of practicing each day, it means we learn more and more of a new language. Of course, a lesson a day won't make you fluent in Spanish in a month, but you will be improving each day, and it's a perfect way to get started. Then you gain traction and try other ways to keep learning that language. Another aspect of Duolingo and microhabits in general is that since habits are easy to perform each day, then when tracking them, we get encouraged to keep the streak, so it's easy to continue, as well as low cost. If you have time to scroll on social media, you do have time to work on a Duolingo lesson. Let's see how to get started. With that sort of definition out of the way, how would you get started with microhabits? Well, as I mentioned, habits should always follow a goal. Then, what's important for you? Once you have something in mind, the following question is, what habits would help you achieve that goal? And also very importantly, what's the minimum effort I can do in a day? You can increase your chances of success by setting a time and a place to perform that habit, so it becomes a clear part of your routine. Then, when working on your habit, I recommend to track when you complete them, either by using recurrent reminders in the Reminders app or by using a dedicated app like Habitify to start tracking that new habit streak. If you generally enjoy the habits that you have, the more chances you have to stick with them. It's also important to every now and then to reevaluate your habits and ask yourself, is this habit actually helping to achieve my goal? If not, tweak or change a habit. Have my priorities changed? Maybe I should focus on a different goal. Maybe it did help, but now it's time to focus on something else. The goal is not to do Duolingo lessons. The goal is to learn a new language. Then, if you have enough vocabulary with Duolingo, you can change your habit to work on grammar or listening skills, for example. It's great that microhabits help us work on our goals continuously, but we need to do this in a mindful way, rather than just blindly follow our routine. Learning Norwegian is one of my goals, and doing a Duolingo lesson a day is one of my habits. But as a developer, microhabits have helped me greatly in my career, and I will share some of those experiences. Back in 2015, I was working as a backend developer in a software agency in Oslo. I have some years working as a backender, mostly with Ruby on Rails, but I always was an Apple fanboy, so I was curious about learning iOS and do that for work. The company that I worked at the time didn't really give me a chance to learn on the job. Also, I had a concrete idea for an app that I wanted for macOS, so my goal became to learn Swift and macOS iOS development and build my app. The app itself was a mind mapping app, but instead of trees, like most mind mapping apps, it would be a graph base, meaning that there is no one single main idea. Also, there could be loops between ideas. I began working on my app Linked Ideas on November 2015. My habit was 10 minutes coding. Just that. I spent some extra time learning Swift on the Mac platform, but at least 10 minutes writing actual code each day. In August 2017, I got my first full-time iOS developer position, and all that time working with Swift and Xcode in my project helped me a lot. In March of 2018, I released my Linked Ideas as a free app in the Mac App Store. In terms of results, first and foremost, I achieved my goal of learning Swift and actually finishing and shipping an app, which is especially nice since it was an app that I wanted for myself. The open source repo from my app got 359 stars on GitHub, which is most stars that I have ever gotten in any repo, so at least I know people thought what I was doing was valuable. I continue working on the app and adding more features. In 2020 though, I received one of the best app reviews I have ever gotten. I have honestly been looking for an app like this for ages. Finally I found it and practically cried. Super useful for non-linear thinkers. I'm a dyslexic college student and this app is a lifesaver for organizing my thoughts. That felt amazing. It took some time, but my 10 minutes coding habit worked wonderfully back then. One of my current habits though is to spend 10 to 15 minutes reading from a book. In this case, the goal is to actually set aside time to learn topics in more depth. I'm not a good reader. I always feel that I didn't have the time to sit down with a book, let alone to finish a whole book. In 2023, I don't recall to have fully read any book whatsoever. Now I do enjoy a lot the process of sitting down with a book. I tend to do this before I start work in the morning while drinking a coffee, sitting in the couch in my office. Just there. So far in 2024, I have read 7 books fully, in topics of productivity, databases, Swift data, macOS development, and SwiftUI. But it's not just about reading a book and forget about it. From a YouTube video from Tego Forte, link down below, I learned his system on how he reads and retains information, and I totally recommend you to check that video. He also recommended a service called Readwise. I have been using it for a while now, and I love it. Readwise has 3 main utilities for me. 1. It syncs my book highlights from Apple Books, PDF documents, and Kindle Books to Notion. Then I can see all my highlights and do the same process as Thiago mentions, highlighting the highlights. 2. The Reader iOS app will generate 5 highlights to review each day, kind of like Duolingo style, as a quick refresher. Seeing those highlights keep my memory fresh about the main lessons I learned in those books I read. 3. There's the Reader iOS app, which allows me to save articles, highlight parts of them, which also sync to Readwise. Also, its text-to-speech feature just rocks, even for languages like Norwegian. If you use my affiliate link to Readwise down below, you will get an extra month of the trial period, allowing you to try it for 2 months for free. Overall, I'm quite satisfied with the results of this 10-minute reading sessions habit. Recently, I restarted my 10-minute coding habit, and my current goal is to build some apps that I can sell on macOS, which would allow me to start building a side income. More than for the money itself, but for the experience of selling software and build cool things that hopefully people want to pay for. I have been working for a couple months on this habit now, and I'm soon ready to release my new app into the Mac App Store. In terms of results so far, I haven't made any money, since my app is not yet out, but as always, side projects provide tons of learning. In one of the apps that I'm building, I'm opted to use Swift data for data storage, and this itself pairs quite well with me reading about the Swift data book in my reading habit, since it's not enough to read about something, but the real learning comes from practicing what you read. Now, given the small amount of time that I have to work on my side projects, I developed some practices that help me be productive in those 10 minutes of coding. 1. Have a Kanban board of tasks to do. I use Notion for this goal and it works for me perfectly. I make sure to keep my board up to date and sort the tasks in order of priority. That makes it easier to know what tasks to tackle next. 2. When I will stop working for the day, even though I might not finish a feature, I will commit all the changes into a work in progress commit. Then, in the clean slate, I make comments in the right locations of the code listing the next step of my work. The next day, I quickly see the lines of code that are not committed with the comments I did to help guide me. Creating work in progress commits can seem problematic in the long run, but it's actually intentional, and it's part of my workflow as I discussed in making my pull requests easier to review for iOS apps video. 3. Finally, just the fact of working each day on a project helps me to have a fresh context in my head and quickly pick up right from where I left off. Something that happens very often in my availability is that I start coding for 10 minutes, and when my timer goes off, I decide to keep coding, which can go for an hour. That's totally fine, and I see it as a bonus when the inspiration arrives. As long as I maintain a healthy work-life balance, it's all good. So that's my story with microhabits. I've been practicing them for quite some years now, and they help me being productive in a sustainable way. For incorporating microhabits in your routine, remember, what are the most important goals you want to achieve? Which habits will help you work on that goal? And what's the least amount of effort you can put on them each day? It's all about getting started and continuously accumulate results over time. Let me know your experience and any questions you might have about the topic in the comments below. Several resources mentioned in this video, including my affiliate link to Readwise, can be found in the video description. If you like content related to productivity, design, and anything iOS and macOS development, don't forget to subscribe. If you're still here, I appreciate your attention and let me know with a comment. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until the next one.